Destiny 2 is a PvEVP game psychological experiment designed to test how many times you're willing to endure having your neural pathways be used as CPUs in a supercomputer made of flesh powered by 3 fat guys on a treadmill. If it means you'll get a little treat after. Only that in this case, the treat takes the form of another piece of exotic gear, and the torture is having your biggest op be falling off the map a minimum of 3 times per mission, while being forced to listen to the voice actors holding back tears while being forced at katana point to read a story that was written by a 3-year-old that never left the test tube.
They're called the Exiles because each of them were exiled from their original house.
Yes, and water is wet. Following other good games, Destiny is one of those fun and fair games that force you to make decisions that will affect tens, maybe hundreds of hours of gameplay seconds after booting up the game for the first time. That choice being what class to pick. Your options are between Titan, Hunter, and Warlock, which are supposed to be the roles of DPS, tank, and support, but we'll get back to that. You can have a profile for each one of the classes, and thankfully, inventory items, guns, and currency is shared between all profiles. But keep in mind, quest completion and armor are not. So I hope you like playing the same 3 multi-hour long quest lines for each character to unlock a subclass just so you can decide you don't like it. Speaking of which, each class has 5 subclasses you can choose from. But even inside each subclass, there are a lot of different choices you have to make for yourself. Some of these choices are extremely important, like choosing what super you want, which is basically like your ultimate. And some of them are just asking if you want your once in a month cupcake with or without sprinkles. Each subclass is supposed to follow a central theme, but usually that just takes the form of which laundry list of buffs and debuffs you want to apply, if you can figure out how to apply them, that is. But even that theme is pretty loosey-goosey, considering the Void Titan is supposed to protect your team, but one of their supers is making a bubble shield and the other is embedding a shield into the closest peaceful protester. So, to spare everyone hours of me listing shit neither of us really give a shit about, I'll just quickly go over each subclass and the abilities I think are the most interesting, so that you also get to go explore each one yourself later. Oh, and just to get it out of the way, these 2 are basically the same for each class. This one gives you a grapple, which is fun. This one doesn't, which isn't. Now, out of all the classes, which do you think is the best? The coolest? The main character of all of Destiny? That's right, it's the... Titan is the game's tank class. You can tell by him having a deployable shield, known for being a complete waste of space on easy missions, but on higher difficulties being the best fucking skill in the entire game, letting you safely revive teammates and placing cover anywhere, which is great because the map designers seem to worry about as much about placing cover as the British cared about lead in their dinner plates during the Blitz. But other than his trusty shield and his sheer girth, the only thing binding him to the tank class is the rage of having to protect your team like they're toddlers. It's always been funny to me how tanks are viewed as these stupid hunks of muscle, since tanks are usually the fuckers that have to deal damage, watch their positioning, and make sure the DPS mains don't try to swallow a car battery. You might think that's funny. I've seen it. It's not funny. At least the trend still stands with the Titan using the support as both kinds of stress relief, while the DPS is proud of incorrectly assembling Legos. The Solar Titan serves as the Polish class in Destiny, by having the extraordinary power of throwing hammers at people, and if you manage to pick up the hammer, the ability instantly recharges and lets you throw another one. This would be great if it actually dealt enough damage to kill anything that isn't a grunt, and if it didn't have a tendency to just fly into the ether. Your super is also Giant Hammer, meaning this fuck is lumbering 2 giant ass mallets around. Alright, maybe that's a good thing. But at least Solar Titan lets you act like the opposite of those, like, sore throat commercials. The Arc Titan is what happens when a tank finally is sick of having to take care of the ungrateful little brats, making mommy finally commit a hate crime, taking the form of shoulder bashing anything that comes into line of sight, like a quarterback on enough undocumented street drugs to kill an adult rhino that just noticed your gold tooth. There's just something so special about repeatedly shoulder checking some big ass boss until more blood is coming out of their mouth than air is going in. And that's not even mentioning the Biden blast. The ultimate fuck off button when something is in front of you and you just really don't want it to be. Just click clack your ruby shoes and you temporarily gain the power of a third world electrician. That being very briefly becoming a Tesla coil. This is not just my favorite charged melee in the game, this might straight up be my favorite subclass in the game. For the sheer damage and power to look at any unwanted situation and forcibly remove that situation. Serving as the yang to Ark's Spicy Yang, Void Titan was the one who drew the short straw and had to actually tank damage. He does this by getting over shield, going under shield, and throwing shield. All these shields make Void Titan pretty good at the whole not dying thing. And you'd think that would be worked into his brothers too, but I guess Void hogged all the thick skull gene for himself. Void also has an augment that lets him spend grenade energy to form a barrier around him that lets him absorb all damage dealt to him and gets extra health and other buffs depending on how much damage he tanks. Of course, every time I use this ability, the enemy seemed more interested in thinning out the local pigeon population instead of hitting me, but shielders can't be choosers.
And who is it you would like me to seduce?
Me!
Warlock is the mage slash support character of Destiny, and is by far the one I have the least to say about. I mean, he's advertised as a mage, but all his class ability really does is create a small zone where you do more damage or get health. Without Titan's shield, standing still out in the open is an amazing way to get splattered, but he has by far the most amount of ways to both heal himself and his teammates. And very fitting for a character that has 19 different ways of getting out of a sticky situation, Warlock is the most susceptible to the greatest enemy in the game, having your movement skill kill you. Solar Warlock has a sick fire sword, letting you fly around and deal a lot of damage. This has to be one of the coolest looking supers in the game. It's just too bad that the sword is really all he gets, other than the schizophrenic list of status effects that Solar comes with. So ironically, by showing up with the biggest stick, it just makes it more obvious what he's compensating for. As the Arc Warlock, you gain the ability to reenact every boring anime fight that people assure you is awesome because the studio spent $2 million on making sure absolutely nothing happened. I have a fucking bone to pick with anime, alright? You also get to equip the Gunslinger and fling your mini sentries wherever you go. The sentry is just an augment, but by not going on cooldown after use, instead only needing 6 enemies killed with an arc weapon, this quickly becomes the fastest charging ability in the game, and amazing for dealing with crowds. I'd often just throw this thing out, and by the time it ran out, I had another one charged. But after singing its praise so much, it's always important to remind the Warlock you will never be a Titan. Do you like explosives? Do you wish you had more of them? Well, then Void Warlock is for you. At the low cost of a room temperature IQ, you can learn the ability of holding live explosives in your hand for way too long, blow up an enemy and yourself, and become a living IED and completely whiff your super. Ironically enough, even though there's a subclass entirely dedicated to fire, we all know who concerned their parents this kid by staring just a bit too longingly into the campfire. With this subclass, everything explodes, especially you. There's probably enough nitroglycerin lodged between your ears to make a solid whack to the head lethal for both parties. The Hunters are the game's DPS class, and they will make sure you remember that. They come pre-packaged with enough teenage angst and egocentrism that they genuinely thought I wasn't going to make fun of them in this review. They also get the only special armor slot that you'll actually notice, and of course it's a cape and a hood. Yes, Hunters genuinely think this makes them look cool. And out of spite that I couldn't choose to not cosplay as a closeted furry with a Spotify playlist full of My Chemical Romance, I found the stupidest looking helmet and built my entire look around it. Or maybe I just like looking like a bee. Hunters also have the only mobility skill that hasn't made me try to extract one of my teeth out of blind rage. If you say you picked Hunter just for the triple jump, I don't blame you, to be honest. And remember how Titan's class ability could safely revive teammates and Warlock could keep them from dying in the first place? Yeah, well, Hunter can do this. I mean, you can make it reload your gun to do stupid shit like this, but I still think this is somehow more disappointing than the shield. And on theme for the Hunter, it does fucking nothing for the rest of the team. You do remember about those guys, right? The Solar Hunter ranks the highest on the likelihood of screaming their own super's name when using it list. If there was a poster boy for Destiny, it would be the Golden Gun Hunter. Even I almost started the game as a hunter, because my love for revolvers has brought me to places I would not go with my dick. All that to say, I can't even lie, man, the golden gun is fucking rad. Only problem being, a headshot from the Deadeye golden gun does about the same damage as a single rocket. You know, that thing you're carrying around all the time, doesn't give a time limit after pulling it out, lets you freely switch between weapons, and carries way more ammo. Yeah, the golden gun kinda sucks. It's cool, it's flashy, it does a decent enough damage, but for building your entire subclass around having a gun you'll pull out and shoot 3 to 5 times per 15 minutes of gameplay, it's just kinda dog. He also has fire daggers. Moving on. As the Arc Hunter, you embrace every single depiction of Wukong by hitting people with a big stick. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I've been staring blankly at the script for 5 minutes trying to come up with what to say. Seriously, what the fuck even there's to say about this guy? That's all he does. That's all he does. And with an augment, you can use your class ability to spin your little stick and get some extra jump height. The Void Hunter is the final evolution of a close-up magician, because instead of making a card vanish, he successfully dodges the draft by transitioning into being invisible. I don't know why these are called augments when they're both pretty much mandatory to make the Void Hunter work. One lets you go invisible whenever you dodge, making the dodge actually useful, and getting you out of some sticky situations. Well, I say you turn invisible, but it's real clear that enemies know where you are, they just kind of respect the timeout, even though they really want to disintegrate you. And if you have the other augment too, when you go invisible, it will mark an enemy, making them take increased damage. Killing this marked enemy will force them to release brap gas, suffocating nearby enemies and giving any guardian such a raging hard-on that they will go invisible to hide their shame. Meaning, you can continuously kill the enemy, go invisible, and mark another enemy, then continue to chain. Void also gets a brap grenade, but because it's your own formula, it doesn't give the same shame that you need to vanish. Your super is also just a more acrobatic, more slippery, and less useful version of the Titan super. I actually think the Void Hunter is pretty fun, but let's be honest, you're not playing Void Hunter because it's fun. You're playing him to be a dickhead in PvP. Speaking of, do you like hurting other people? Doesn't matter, because the first few games of Destiny 2 PvP will be you violently getting your shit pushed in over and over. Chances are you're showing up with a PvE build, maybe slightly tweaked towards PvP if you're smart. They're not. They have the needed exotics, subclasses, and general bullshit that makes killing you 5 times easier than the other way around. Keep in mind, these people are Destiny players, and the only people that are sweaty enough to play PvP are the kind of people who need a build guide on how to boil an egg. You could do your own thing, use the weapons and loadouts that you like, and eventually you'll get into a good lobby and have some fun. But trust me, coming from a guy that uses semi-automatic pistols in COD just because it's fun killing people with pea shooters, it's not worth being stumped 4 times in a row. Choose your favorite flavor of bullshit and go nuts. But what if there was an actual good PvP mode? I love Gambit. I love Gambit. Gambit is like a game of volleyball. If a person on one team could do a Dark Souls invasion and start beating the shit out of the other team while they're trying to play. Putting it shortly, your team is here to kill a random faction of enemies. Those enemies drop motes that you then have to deposit. If you die before depositing, tough shit. Get enough motes and that will summon a boss called the Primarch. Kill the Primarch and his gimps and you win the game. There just so happens to be another team trying to do the exact same thing, and if they win first, you lose. Here's where the funny comes in though, making me rub my hands together like I'm cosplaying a fly ready to feast on some shit. Depot enough motes at the same time and you'll send an enemy to the other side that stops them from depositing until the enemy is dead. Which is mildly annoying, but the real fun starts when the portal opens up and you get to hop through. If your local hunter main hasn't been camping it for the entire game, that is. You now have 30 seconds to fuck up the enemy team's day. Best part is that you know where they are, but all they get is an alarm telling them that they're not alone anymore. And because this is a PvEVP game mode, that means the enemies are way more likely to have weapons focused towards killing AI. So suddenly having a creature lurking in the bushes like a voyeuristic pube fetishist isn't gonna be a good time for them. The best part is that killing an enemy either makes them drop all their motes or straight up heals the Primarch if it's out. My personal favorite way of reminding the enemy team that the blaring alarm they're hearing wasn't a false positive is this exotic sniper rifle that can straight up one-shot people. Or I guess you could just use any automatic gun if you want to be boring about it. And because I'm amazing at pacing, I should probably start talking about the guns in this FPS game. You know, halfway through the fucking video. The gunplay in Destiny is pretty standard in that using anything that isn't an AR and SMG is basically throwing. But I refuse to use them because believe it or not, I like to have fun in my video games. Every weapon that drops, even if they have the same name and look the same, will be semi-unique from each other by slightly randomizing the stats and attributes it has. And the same goes for armor, other than the added bonus of drip. But all that is thrown out the window when it comes to Exotics are unique pieces of gear that come with very strong bonuses, anything from explosive rounds to getting another grenade use or making you better at ducking responsibilities. They are so strong that you can only equip one exotic weapon and one exotic armor piece at the same time. And usually your other weapons and even subclass should synergize with your chosen exotic. Being as strong as they are, exotics are very rare, only coming from exotic engrams that you get from completing quests, completing a long and challenging mission, defeating bosses, bought from the local 7-Eleven Eldritch Horror in a sundress, for playing the game, or as a reward for existing without breaking your teeth trying to eat a brick. They have really lowered the standards recently. These exotic engrams can be turned in, giving you a random exotic weapon or piece of armor, meaning both your loadout and playstyle can be changed drastically depending on which exotics you get when. Or you could just straight up choose which one you want, but do I really need to point at the sign again? There's also your power score and your guardian rank. Your power score gets increased by equipping gear of higher gear scores. So what does power score do? Men of science are still pondering that to this day. When I asked them, some said nothing. Some say boost your damage and defense, most called me slurs, and one sent me a box containing a detailed letter of how he's going to execute me and what I could only describe as the mangled corpse of Hello Kitty. We have managed to find out what your guardian rank does though. It is purely there to be shown next to your name, so that anyone that sees you joining their fire team will either be worried that you'll need carrying, or worried about your mental well-being. The way you increase your guardian rank is by doing these challenges. These are either so piss easy that you'll do them by accident, or will be so illegible that the devs that wrote it and the physical manifestation of edging and aneurysm have the same chance of being able to decipher these moon runes. I've literally spent a week straight trying to figure out what the game wants me to do, only to complete within an hour once I figured it out. One thing the game has figured out though are the cosmetics. Hey, sorry to break the flow of the video, but wouldn't it be awful if this entire part was cut to save time? It has been 5 months. One thing you'll quickly learn from playing, any online game these days is that everyone seems to be rocking the tackiest and cringiest gear you can imagine. And Destiny 2 is no different. It's only like one step below a COD lobby at this point. Editing hatred, go into a Payday 3 lobby, find the cringiest looking motherfucker you can find in like 3 games and like study that guy for proof of all of this, that I'm right. With this much secondhand embarrassment, you think the game's difficulty would come from not wincing like you just watched someone fall 2 stories and land on their nuts. But no, the difficulty comes from bullshit mechanics, bullet sponges, and falling off the fucking map. The main problem when starting the game is trying to figure out how the fuck you actually get into a quest. Fumbling around in these menus trying to make sense of literally anything. Do you like to look up these menus? Good, because I'm not joking when I say most of my footage is either me in a menu or walking around the hub trying to figure out how to do basic shit. And after that shit show, I wish I could tell you that the story is good. It isn't. I do remember watching Breaky's video on Lightfall way before I ever thought about actually playing the game myself. And you know the story's bad when even he talks shit about it. He thinks COD campaigns are good storytelling. Ugh. This is what you get for stealing RoboQuest from me. JK, I love you. I once zoned out for multiple hours in a quest line, and when I started listening again, the characters had just realized that the DLC about time being fucky might mean that people can time travel. But to make sure Aunt Hatred isn't being too hatey, I do have some praise to give to the game too. And that comes in the form of the team that designed the environments for this game. To put it short, it's fucking phenomenal. Might be some of the best I've ever seen. Personally, I think the best free roaming area in the game has to go to the Pale Heart. I'm not gonna get into the lore reason of why everything looks this way, but trust me when I say the environment tells the story of this place way better than any writer could. I do also have to give the props to the combat in this game. Shooting enemies, using abilities, and just general game feel and animations feels really good. But after all this rambling, you're probably left with one burning question. The same question I had almost half a year ago at this point. Why play Destiny? Because we're waiting on the next Warframe update. The joke used to be Warframe was better because you can actually move your ship in the loading screen. Now we have this shit. In all honesty, I don't really have an answer. Making this review has made me pretty burnt out on the game, but I still had fun. I like the game, even if I talk shit about it. It's a lot of fun to just load up a mission and shoot some people and collect better gear. It's MMO Borderlands that has a rust wipe for your gear special numbers every once in a while. Some of you might also be wondering, how are you doing, Hatred? Well, physically, emotionally, and financially, I've never suffered more in my life. Tune in next time when I review a game because it was a challenge from a YouTuber way more successful than I'll ever be, that I have forbid for publicly associating with me because I'm scared of what that will do to his image. There's also a tiny channel update in the description. It's a nice excuse to meet up with some friends and shoot some people and fuck around, and sometimes that's all you really need.